This is Donna Brin in Little River, South Carolina at her company bFIVE40.
Right.
And we're just outside of Myrtle Beach, and Miss Brin is going to talk to me about how she started her company here.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. And thanks for that wonderful introduction. Yes, you did a great job going through our website and all the different technologies, and I'm excited to dig in a little bit deeper. So my name is Donna Brin, and I'm the owner of bFIVE40, and we are a custom manufacturer focused on technical textiles for many different types of applications. So we talked a little bit about custom apparel, uniforms, then we also do soft signage, and a lot of our products are made with textiles that are derived from plastic water bottles. So there's a sustainability element. So how I got started is kind of a crazy story. We actually began with a consumer product that we got into Walmart. If anybody knows him from the wrestling world, this is an inflatable punching bag toy that has a fabric cover that slips over the top. If you just pan the wall, you can see that we began with animal characters that eventually got into Walmart. You know, it started with an idea. My husband, we have 2 young boys at the time, you know, a lot of energy, and inflatable punching bags back in the day were a really fun toy, and they're still around now, but I remember them from when I was a kid.
Right.
But they don't last very long, and they're made in China, and you know, it's to the point where we were like, you know, let's get one and see if the boys like it. And sure enough, after about 4 or 5 hours of play, it you know, it died.
Right.
So we got another one, and I eventually decided, you know what, let me see if I can make this product better. So about entrepreneurship and the whole idea of taking a concept and making something better, or you know, filling a need or fixing a problem. So with this particular toy product, it was about, well, let's make something that's going to last longer and be a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. So I grabbed a piece of fabric and went down to our local tailor. And at the time I was living in Brooklyn, when I'm from New York. And I brought it down there with a piece of duct tape over the hole that the inflatable had in it. And we put a covering on it and an elastic band, and went to an international toy fair in Manhattan and sold 500 units in 3 days, and then got them into Walmart. So that all happened up in New York. I came down here, I started filling orders out of my garage. And then I was using a subcontractor in the Florence, South Carolina area, a print, cut, and sew operation. And they were making what went over the inflatable punching bag, which is this covering, which right now has John Cena on it. But so this inflatable punching bag cover had the animal characters printed on it. But then eventually we realized, you know, we could put somebody's face on it, or we could do corporate branding. So that whole concept started to get legs. And then I talked my husband into coming into the business with me and investing in the technology that's used to make the covering. And then we figured out all the other things we could make with it. So we went from an inflatable punching bag toy to banners and flags and table coverings. And then we had COVID happen. So COVID was crazy because as we started the business at the end of 2018, and everything went on hold. So the business that we had going on was not happening anymore. So we needed to figure out what we were going to do. So I pivoted to fabric face masks made with our print technology. And we had one sewer at the time. And the crazy part about that story is that my great grandmother, and this is a picture of her operation here in 1917, so very long time ago, had to do something very similar with her operation. She was making dresses for Lord & Taylor, and in 1918 there was a crazy Spanish flu pandemic that happened. And so she pivoted to make medical gowns for hospitals in the New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey area. Anyway, to make a long story short, I had to do the same thing 5 generations later, 105 years later. And
were you aware of that?
No, my uncle, I was on the phone with my uncle during COVID, and he was like, you know, Grandma Lily went through the same thing. And I was like, what?
That's crazy.
Yeah, so it was crazy. But the great thing about the pandemic, the horrible thing about the pandemic, obviously it's the pandemic. But for us, we had 3 employees, and then we got all these orders for masks. And one particular opportunity with Mike Rowe. So Mike Rowe is a personality on a show called Dirty Jobs, which is on the channel, and he's very much into the trades and supporting, skilled labor, and big advocates of technical schools and vocational schools and learning a trade. And for us, that was very interesting because that's what we do here. We're printing, we're sewing, and then we eventually got into embroidery. So it was a nice kind of partnership. So we launched a website and started selling masks. And within a year, we wound up raising almost $250,000 for his foundation.
Wow.
And he took me on Fox News, and we grew from 3 employees to 20, and it was amazing. So talk about just this incredible opportunity that gets certainly not handed to you. It was something that I had to work hard for because I needed to find all those contracts for the masks. Everybody came out of the woodwork trying to, make masks, and there were all different variations of them. But we did it. We made it. And so now here we are in 2024, and we're not making masks anymore, but we are continuing with our print, sublimation print technology. We have 13 on sewing, and then embroidery. And more recently, we invested into a technology called 3D knitting, which I can show you all that machinery. So that's a background on the company. We're a little over 5 years old. And so team uniforms is kind of our meat and potatoes. And then corporate signage, so banners, flags, table coverings, and then corporate uniforms, so embroidered polos and pullovers and that sort of thing. And then the 3D knitting I can talk about a little bit later on. It's a newer technology, and we're focused on the automotive industry, interiors for that. I'm from New York, and I met my husband in New York. He's from Georgia. My in-laws lived in Atlanta and purchased a vacation home here in the Myrtle Beach area. And we were kind of busting at the seams in Brooklyn. I had my second child, and we had just launched the toy company. And my mother-in-law got diagnosed with cancer and wound up passing very early. I mean, it was only less than a year. And to help my father-in-law out, who was still kind of traveling back and forth from Atlanta, we took over the house at the beach. And the reason why it's bittersweet is because I had just started the company, and where we are, right on the border of North and South Carolina, is a tremendous amount of textile mills and sewing talent. And so it just wound up being this perfect opportunity to figure out the manufacturing side rather than just outsource it. So we came down here, and now it's been over 10 years, and it was a challenging adjustment because especially in the city, which is, I didn't grow up there, but I grew up about 45 minutes northwest. But my career before I did this was working on Wall Street for commodities, in the commodities market. So it was a very different, hustle bustle. And then I came down here, and it was, the beach and beautiful, but slower. And so a lot of getting used to, and, just the most perfect place to raise children. And I just love it and have a business. So let's go. And now that I've talked a little bit about show you some of the finished goods, and then I'll show you the technology that makes them. So on the uniform side, we offer, we do a lot with baseball. So baseball jerseys, pants that we decorate. We don't make the pants here, but we make the jerseys here, and hoodies. So this is one of our most popular hoodies. But this is our signature scatter print interior hood. So this is called this team is called the Carolina Crush.
Nice.
And so it's a fleece hoodie. This is another team that we work with, but this is a typical baseball jersey. And I'm going to show you that we actually start off with white fabrics. Actually, why don't you just pan over there? See all these fabrics here? So these are all different types of fabrics that we bring in from different fabric mills, mostly around North and South Carolina. So we work with Aberdeen Fabrics. Fisher is another company, Carolina Cotton Works, and Gaffney. So these are some of the local companies that we work with. So this is the other side of our business. So we're going to dig into the sublimation printing, which is what we use to make the jerseys and anything that's an all-over print application. And then the other side of the business is embroidery. So this these are products that we buy from distributors. So this is called Sports Tech, but you're probably very familiar with Nike, of course, Adidas, and all the other big name brands. So this is a polo, and then we do the embroidery. So I'll show you some of the other. So this is a vest, and this is made by Holloway. And this is, again, embroidery that we do in-house. Two different types of things I talked about with apparel. One is the apparel that we make, like the jerseys, where we make it in-house. And that is our apparel brand called bFIVE40.
Okay.
We do white, fabrics, all over print, cut them out, sew them into the garments. And then the other application is the blanks, where we bring in, made overseas, mostly China and Thailand and Vietnam. And then we bring in those blanks and then we decorate. So those are the two different sides to our business when it comes to the apparel. These are 10-foot feather flags that are used at like golf events, or sometimes you'll see them outside of corporations. This is called a seg frame. SEG, a silicone edge graphic, and this is fabric. This diverts 75 plastic water bottles from the ocean. So silicone edge graphic, we actually sew silicone around the edging of the image, and then that snaps into a metal frame. So what's nice about this application is that corporations can actually take the graphic out and reuse the hardware and change it. So you'll see these at department stores or corporation lobbies. And then this is called a step and repeat banner.
Yeah.
So these are different types of banner applications that we make too. And then here's a table covering. So this is a good example of all the different types of signage that we make.
Right.
Okay, so let's go back to sublimation printing, because that's what we started off with. Sublimation printing utilizes fabrics that are mostly sourced locally, and then it's a two-step process. So the paper gets printed. So the paper gets printed on what's called a sublimation printer, and the printer is very much like a big inkjet printer. So it's 72 inches long, and we have an example run on here now.
Wow.
So what happens is there's a software program. So one job that we offer here is graphic design. So our graphic designers work in Adobe Suite, and they have all different types of templates for different, I'm going to use apparel for the example, but like size small, medium, large, extra large, all the way up to 4XLT. And then they'll apply designs to those templates. And then those templates are then ripped to the sublimation printer and then printed onto the paper. So, Jewel, if you just look at this paper, you can see what's on here is the front of a jersey, the back of the jersey, and then on the bottom is the left sleeve, the right sleeve, and then you'll also see, I think this actually is a hoodie, so you can't see because it's still on the roll, but you'll see all the different pieces. So we do what's called a gang print, and we utilize as much of the 60-inch wide goods as we can with the different designs. Everything has to go on the same substrate. So we take the roll of printed paper and then we come in here. So that paper then gets loaded on what's called a heat press. So this is a heat press, two-step process. The heat press is really hot. So it heats up to 380 degrees. We put the roll of paper here on the machine, and then the substrate, which is the fabric, goes underneath. The fabric and the paper come up onto the bed and goes through the process. It turns the ink on the paper into gas, and then the gas is transferred into the fibers of the fabric. Wow. And it comes out the other side. So we'll go back through again, and then I'll show you different pieces that are cut out.
What kind of ink is that?
So it's a water-based. It's a water-based ink. So it's good for the environment, or not good, but it's not bad. So this is an already cut piece. Remember that Pirates jersey we just looked at? Yes. So the fabric will come out here with all of the prints on it, and then we'll manually cut it out with
I was going to ask.
Yeah. And then if it's something that is a large run, then we do what's called a rotary. And then we can just stack them up and then cut them out so that it's multiple. So this is one sleeve with the flag on the sleeve. That was an older jersey. This is the 2024 jersey. This is the other sleeve. These are the collars. So this is a V-neck. So it goes like this and around the back. So that gets installed too. And then this is the front of the jersey and the back of the jersey.
So you manually cut each of these pieces?
All these pieces get cut out and then sewn together to make the garment.
Wow.
And I can show you inside. I can see some of them already made. So here it is.
Wow.
So here are all the pieces. So here's that sleeve with the flag. And here's that collar.
How long would one of those take?
The front and the back. Well, we do them in an assembly.
Mm-hmm.
So one person focuses on installing the sleeves. The other person is responsible for putting together the front and the back, so sewing the side seam.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another sewer that does all of the hemming.
Mm-hmm.
So 3/4 of the product is made on one machine, which is called a single needle stitch, which is this one. And then the hemming is done on this machine, and this machine is hemmer. And that's the reason it's shared by 3 people, but we make about 80 jerseys a day.
Okay.
So 80
between
in
3
8-hour shift, so that's 10 an hour.
Yeah, still good.
Yep. So that's that. All right, so that's sublimation, and then I can show you in here is we also do embroidery. So the reason why we got into embroidery, which is just very natural when you're growing a business, is figuring out what your customers need. So we were doing baseball jerseys, and they wear baseball hats. So here's this is called a puff. Mm-hmm. So we work with a lot of different types of hats, but Richardson and Pacific Headwear. This one is called the Game. Mm-hmm. And we do all these in house. Here's some of the Mike Rowe products.
Right.
So these are the towels. These are made with what's called ANSI certified ANSI high visibility neon green. Mm-hmm. And then we make them into, we call them shop towels. So they're magnetic, which means that on the corner, there's an industrial strength magnet. So it could actually adhere to any metal surface. And it's intended for like a quick grab to clean your hands. Mm-hmm. It's a microfiber towel. So it's really good for like cleaning glasses or any kind of like fine electronics work. But then also we're seeing a lot of automotive companies really like them because it's got soil release, so if it can get really dirty, then it cleans really easily. Nobody's got a magnet in it,
right?
And this is also branded for Mike Rowe, so it's special because net proceeds go to his foundation, which funds scholarships for future tradesmen and women. So it's pretty great.
Great.
So that's an example of so just talk about it in terms of jobs. So sublimation printing is one technology, and my husband Dan runs the sublimation print production. But that is, we've got an apprenticeship this summer for somebody to learn how to do that with him. So production assistant is one job that we offer, and that will pay somewhere between $18 and $22 an hour.
Okay.
And then sewing. So that's an apprenticeship that we have right now through Horry Georgetown Technical College. And sewing usually starts somewhere around 14. And so they sew all the different products that we were just talking about. Embroidery is usually done by the same person that does the cutting. So we haven't started an apprenticeship for that, but that's also a very, I think, hands-on, kind of fun, creative type of work that could be interesting, but we're not hiring for that right now.
Right.
The graphic design is an apprenticeship that we also offer. And so the woman that is working with us, she started with us about 2 years ago, graduated from Horry Georgetown Tech. And she's great. She's full-time. She works mostly out of her house. And so that's a great position. And something that we offer. With the creative side, with the graphic design, you really need to have an understanding of a basic understanding of Adobe and Photoshop, Illustrator. So those programs are really important. You can get, a 2-year degree at Horry Georgetown Technical College, and be able to kind of hit the ground running with us. I mean, what we do is very specialized, but having that understanding is a really important part of being hireable.
Right.
So that would be a prerequisite for graphic design. Sewing, no work. I mean, you don't really have to have any job experience at all. It's a lost art. It's really hard to find anybody that knows how to sew anymore. So we look for people that just have, a really good eye for detail and are interested in the creative side. I mean, because there's so much of our process that's manual. And I mean, even with the graphic design too, you're given logo assets and in many instances asked to create the design. So I can go back out and show you what I'm talking about. Like with the uniforms, even, we're given team colors, we're given, kind of the overall style that they want to achieve, but it's really up to the graphic design artist to work with the client to come up with, is it a retro design? Is it something that's, more, old school from like, based on the Astros or, based on some particular team. So there's a lot of kind of, ability to use your own creativity. And the same thing goes with the sewing too. I mean, you obviously start off with understanding patterning and understanding different sew techniques and, but eventually, we make some really cool stuff. Like we made this 40-foot tall octopus head.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was really crazy. And for one of the zoos in Florida.
Okay.
It was for a sustainability awareness campaign. And so we had to climb this steel structure and figure out how to take fabric that's only 60 inches wide and wrap a 40-foot footprint. With graphic design, there actually is a degree in graphic design. With sewing, the way we work that, because you really don't have to have any experience beforehand, we do, our most seasoned sewers are kind of like adjunct professors. So they're here and we hold the classes here on site and it's an on-the-job training.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And it's through Apprenticeship Carolina.
It's through Apprenticeship Carolina. So my husband and I started the business, like I said, with that one consumer product. And so that gave me the means to invest in the technology, knowing that I could do so much more with it. I knew that we weren't going to make a business only around fabric coverings for inflatable punching bags, but I knew that sublimation printing was a newer technology that has so much. It has a sustainability side. It's much more earth friendly than screen printing. It's much more flexible on personalization, and it's digital. So it's longer lasting. It produces longer lasting goods. And so I saw that as an opportunity to get into other things. And so I made the investment in the technology, knowing that we would be able to kind of grow it into something more. And then, it's all about calculating your risk. I had, my husband graduated from Georgia Tech.
Okay.
I knew it started with a G.
Yeah.
So he's an engineer mindset. That is not me.
Right.
I am more on the financial side, and I'm, had a background in sales. So between the two of us, it works. We were able to combine skill sets, and he was able to figure out the technology side, and my job is to bring in the business. So I feel like from an entrepreneur standpoint, it's finding those partnerships, finding, that network, the local here has been such an important part of our growth and our story. South Carolina Department of Commerce is just a, wonderful, state agency that has been, a really important part of our story. They featured us as part of their rebrand campaign for 2024, along with BMW and Sunoco and Nefron, really big companies that have been in the state of South Carolina for many years. And then here we are, bFIVE40 as this small business success story.
Right.
And it's, finding those state agencies, understanding the resources that are available to you, getting your network established, and finding the partnerships, because it's really a hard thing, I think, to try to do everything on your own.
Definitely.
I really feel like you need to kind of, bring yourself to not bring yourself, but kind of create a network of success and find the resources in your area so that you can build that success. And I think mentorship is really important too. So I do a mentorship program with Brin Resorts and Hotels. They're a very important, prominent family here in the Myrtle Beach area. They have many hotels and restaurants, and I work with them on mentorship for their employees. Some that have just joined the organization. And I think that finding mentors, finding people that are older than you that have kind of been down the path is a really important thing too.
Right.
The mistakes are all part of it. I've made a ton. I'm really good at failing. I like to say that all the time because it's all part of it. It's how you learn. And I mean, the risks have to be calculated. The fails can't be to the point where you're going to die. But, it's all part of the process. And I feel like it's how you learn. Like with the punching bag toy, we had all those incredible sales, 500 units in a few days. And then I had already mapped out my supply chain and had a lot of the work done so that I knew that in February, when we started taking the orders, that I would have to deliver at the, middle of summer at the latest for the Christmas season, and of course, everything that could possibly go wrong went wrong, and we missed it. We missed the Christmas season and we lost half the orders, and I was devastated. And I was pregnant. I was very pregnant. So these are the stories, right? So I walk around and say, oh, this is great. I have this great company and everything is wonderful. And no, I mean, it was a train wreck, and I figured out how to get us back on track, and we salvaged as many orders as we could. And, I figured out there was a problem with a valve, and there was a problem with, a supplier that didn't come through. And then we had issues with our packaging and, all those things. As, I did a 20-page business plan, and I had all this stuff. And at the end of the day, things went wrong, and things were out of my control. And all I could do was stop, think, what do I do? Make the pivot, make the adjustment, and move on to the next task at hand. And it's never easy. And watch all these different stories on, Instagram and Facebook and social media in general, and it paints this picture of glory and everything is wonderful. And, it is awesome having your own business. I have autonomy. I can see all my kids' sporting events when I want to, and, and I have pride, and I'm giving back to my community in so many different ways. And, but it's hard work. It's really hard. And I had to start off with nothing, and we made it into something. And it's important to understand that it's not all perfect. They found us online and ordered them in 2019, like 20 of them for his Discovery Channel colleagues as a joke for Christmas with his face on it. And so it was the foundation that made the order, and I kept their contact information. And when the pandemic happened in April, we were small. We only had, I think it was either 3 or 4 of us, but still there were people that were depending on a paycheck, and all of our business stopped. And I was seeing all the mask stuff starting, and I knew we had the printing. We had 2 really great sewers, and you know what? We could do it. So I called up the foundation and asked if they wanted to do it. Of course, they said no. and then I had gotten some other mask jobs and went back to them again, and they said no again. And then I got more corporate-oriented mask jobs and went back to them again and said, listen, I really think that we could make money for, the Mike Rowe Works Foundation, and you can use this money to fund scholarships. So here's what I think. And I put together a plan of how much money I thought we could make on the masks and contribute to the foundation. We crushed it.
Wow.
We crushed it. And now we're still working with them. The towels just came out in October of last year.
So you were told no twice, and you still persisted.
Because it's Mike.
Right.
And I mean, but even if it wasn't Mike Rowe, whatever it was, I mean, you just, again, it's not these jobs, these deals, these contracts, they don't come to you on a silver platter. Oh, and then all of a sudden you have it. It doesn't work that way. You have to you have to be persistent, and you have to be dedicated, and you have to believe in what you're doing, and know that, the confidence level has to be there, because if it's not, people can see passion, people can see confidence, and I just knew that we could do it, and we did. I mean, now it's close to $500,000 that we've raised for his foundation, which is crazy.
For Little River, South Carolina.
And then he asks me to go on Fox News, which was like crazy. So, but again, it had to do with, like you said, the persistent part of it, because they did say no right away.
And using your resources, remembering that he had made an order, or the foundation did, and you needed some opportunities, so you reached out.
So there are 360 degrees in a circle, and a circle is a flat shape. So when an object becomes three-dimensional, it does so at 540 degrees. So think of 360, and then plus 180 is 540. So we add depth. Depth in our apprenticeship, depth in our sustainability, depth in our hiring people with disabilities through vocational rehabilitation of Conway. So it's more than a purchase, it's deeper than that. So let's see, Alana joined us at 18. She was with Georgetown Technical College. She was 1 year into her graphic design degree. And then she apprenticed with us for about 1.5 years. And then after she graduated, she started with us full time. I can tell you, graphic design, it hires between $14 and $18 an hour. Graphic design is tricky though, because you've got to get in with a company that's willing to kind of either sponsor or apprentice. You don't really leave a graphic design education being able to go right into the workforce. I really feel like you need to have some kind of mentorship or apprenticeship, because there's a lot more to it.
Especially depending on the industry you're going to be a graphic designer with.
Yes, yep. But it's one of those things where it's a wonderful career. I mean, Alana's really done great with us, and she's 21 now, so I think she's been with us 2 years.
And she enjoys it.
Yes. I really love the flexibility that it affords me, and it's funny because I started off, and like I said, I spent 12 years working on Wall Street, which is a very different career. And, at the time, very male dominated, still is. So it's an intense job, and very high pressure. And, but still there were all these, wins. You get the quick wins, and, it's lucrative, and it was a really exciting job, and it allowed me to it gave me kind of the impetus for starting this business. So being in this business now, although it is still high pressure in the sense that it's, our money and, our cash flow and our revenue bringing in the sales, it's different because I have more control. So I guess that would probably be what I like most about my job, is the ability to kind of be in control of my own destiny. The hardest part is being in control of your own destiny.
Okay.
So it's great. And then at the same time, it also is very daunting, because you are the one that is in control of the business, the sales, the costs, the sourcing of the raw materials, all these people that you have to have in place to do all these jobs. It's hard. It's really hard work. So that would be, I think, probably
best and the hardest,
and the good at the same time. Well, we have a program right now with 8.
Okay.
Wow. And we started off in the very beginning in 2020, like halfway through 2020. I think our first program was like either May or June of 2020, and it was like 3.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it went to, I think the most we've ever had is probably 12, and now this next one is actually starting this week. Today's Friday, so it's starting on Monday. It's supposed to start this week, and that's 8. I think what inspired me more than anything was my great grandmother. That picture that I showed you in the beginning, I knew her. I was about 10 when she passed away, and she was amazing. She was born in 1900, and she just was this really dynamic lady. And we used to sit and crochet together. She taught me how to crochet, and that was her thing. She used to make crochet blankets, and she used to give away a lot of products to, the poor, and, media, whatever. She was just a really kind heart. And so we used to sit and talk all the time, and she was an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that kind of planted the seed very early on with me. And even on the Wall Street job, the profit centers very much work kind of like, you're almost kind of like an entrepreneur. You're given a target, sales target, you have to meet it. So, there's a lot of pressure. And so I kind of feel like between that and my great grandmother, I knew that when I left the industry, I was going to do something with owning my own business. And then along came the inflatable punching bag, and I figured out how to grow it from there.
Nice. So you just took advantage of the opportunities that were presented to you.
Mm-hmm. Mentorship. Yeah. So in your community, where is everybody from? You said everybody's from
all over the state. Yep.
Yeah. So find in your community where they have, what are they called? Like here, it's called the HTC Inspire Hub.
Okay.
And it's basically like a community center where they allow for people that are starting businesses to come in and lease space. Usually you lease a desk. And that's a really great entrepreneur environment because everybody's kind of doing the same thing. Everybody's trying to figure it out. And a lot of times those spaces will hire in people to come and talk. So I would say to go in your community and try to figure out what resources are available for entrepreneurs there. Mm-hmm. So when I moved from New York and I got down here, I was listening to NPR radio. Mm-hmm. And I'm on NPR a lot. I'm the South Carolina Business Review, so I go on there usually once a year. Anyway, I was listening to NPR and I heard of an accelerator program that was starting here in the Myrtle Beach area. And I reached out, and I didn't really have much of a product at that point. I mean, I was selling it, but I was still trying to figure out the manufacturing side. And I did. It was like a 3-month program. And if you look in my office, I won their pitch competition.
Oh, wow.
And so Bonk Fit, that was the name of the inflatable. And that was the name of the company before we transitioned to bFIVE40. So that is how it all really kind of took off. So that was me listening to NPR and then finding the resources in my community. And then taking advantage of the Harbor Entrepreneur Center was eventually where I wound up, which was down in Charleston. Run.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a big runner. I've always been very athletic. Because when I left Wall Street, in between, I had a few years there. I got married and had kids, and I was a spin instructor. And I also taught some aerobics too. Yeah. So I was always very into physical fitness and health. And so, yeah, stress, big time. I run. I've done a couple of half marathons, and I really enjoy it. So I try to make sure that every day or 5 days a week I get out there and run 3 to 5 miles.